The peace of Earth was shattered without warning as a vast fleet of alien ships appeared in the sky above every major city of the world. These ships were enormous, their dark hulls blocking out the sun as they hovered silently across the globe. The first few moments were filled with awe and fear as people looked up unsure of what to make of the sight that had descended upon them. And then the message came clear as a bell, a voice booming from the ship's speakers. It was cold and unfeeling, like the echo of some forgotten god or demon. "You have been chosen. Your world is ours. You will bow or be erased forever." The voice cut through every communication channel, broadcasting to every nation simultaneously. At first people thought it was a hoax, that it was some sort of elaborate prank. But as the ships continued to linger without moving their shadows across entire continents, as they blocked out the stars in the night sky, humanity began to realize this was no joke. Earth had been invaded by beings from beyond the stars. The world governments scrambled to form a response, any response, but all the plans in the world felt useless. In the face of such overwhelming force, humanity had never seen technology like this. Before, these alien ships were beyond anything Earth had ever dreamed of. The weapons they possessed seemed capable of turning entire cities to dust. With a single blow, the military power that had once been a source of pride was nothing against the sheer magnitude of the enemy's strength. Panic began to spread as cities prepared for the worst. Military commanders discussed futile strategies, each one more desperate than the last. But the aliens were unmoved. Their ships remained in place, giving the human race no opportunity to act, no time to gather their forces. It was clear that the Xethar had no intention of negotiating, no desire for peace. They had come to conquer or destroy, and they would not hesitate to do either. The tension in the world mounted as people began to turn on one another. Some sought refuge in religious zeal, others in the comfort of family and friends, while some retreated into denial, hoping that it would all simply go away. But despite the confusion and the fear, there was one thing that humans everywhere could agree upon: they would not go quietly into the dark. Humanity would not simply kneel before their new masters. The moment arrived when Earth's leaders gathered together to formulate a plan. It was a meeting of minds, each nation represented by their strongest figures, military strategists, scientists, and diplomats. The first words of the meeting echoed in the minds of every person in the room. "We cannot surrender. The Xethar believe we will cower before them, that we will simply accept our place in the universe. But they are wrong. Humanity will never bow to invaders. Not now, not ever." It was a turning point. The leaders of Earth, realizing what they had to do, they would not submit, they would not fold their arms and accept the end of everything they had built. The message was clear. The declaration was made. Humanity was going to fight this fight, no matter what it took. The message broadcast across the world, and even into the cold expanse of space. As the words rippled out into the void, "You want war, prepare for devastation." The declaration echoed through the skies of Earth and beyond the atmosphere, reaching the very stars themselves. But to the Xethar, it was nothing more than a brief moment of amusement. They had believed humanity would crumble under the weight of their superiority, that Earth would quickly bow to their might. Instead, they were met with defiance in a form they had never expected. The first response came not from Earth's military forces or governments, but from the people of the planet themselves. People who had lived their lives in peace now found themselves bound together by a singular purpose, a burning desire to protect their home. The chaos of the first days had given way to organization and resolve. The nations of the world began to collaborate, pooling resources and expertise into a united front. Humanity's first true show of strength was born not from advanced weapons or massive fleets, but from the collective will of every single person who refused to surrender. As the Xethar hovered overhead, assuming their conquest would be swift, they were blind to the quiet movements that began on the ground all around them. The Earth's resistance began to take shape in the shadows, not in the form of traditional armies, but through guerrilla forces driven by the very spirit of humanity's ingenuity and determination. They were not equipped with the most advanced weapons, nor the largest ships, but they had something far more dangerous: the ability to adapt and improvise. In the hushed corners of underground bunkers, scientists, engineers, and military tacticians came together, working day and night to reverse engineer the technology that Xethar had so carelessly left in their wake human hands touched alien technology, and in those first moments of contact humanity realized its greatest advantage. It could learn from its enemies faster than they could anticipate. It was a race against time as human ingenuity began to outpace their invaders' expectations. A small team of hackers infiltrated the Xethar's communication network, feeding them false signals and diverting their patrols in every direction, creating confusion among their ranks. Meanwhile, a group of engineers reverse-engineered the alien weaponry and shields, unlocking the secrets of their power and turning them against their creators. It wasn't enough to win the war, but it was enough to create the first seeds of hope. Earth's cities no longer sat idle beneath the shadow of the alien ships. People were organizing in ways never seen before. The first strikes were small, but they were fierce. Resistance cells attacked Xethar supply lines with lightning speed, hitting them when they least expected it and retreating before the enemy could retaliate. This was no longer just a battle for survival. This was a battle of minds and willpower. It was clear to everyone that if humanity was to survive, it would not be through sheer strength alone, but through the ability to turn the tables against a seemingly invincible foe. These early victories were small, but they were enough to send ripples of doubt throughout the Xethar ranks. The aliens, who had expected the human race to crumble, were now faced with a puzzle they had never anticipated. The Xethar had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt to a threat, not with overwhelming numbers, but with tactics born from desperation and brilliance. In every corner of Earth, the resistance grew stronger and more confident with each passing day, and the aliens were beginning to feel the weight of a war they had never expected to fight. As the weeks passed, the resistance against the Xethar grew bolder and more coordinated. The Xethar had anticipated a swift victory, yet humanity was proving to be an entirely different force than they had calculated. The battles were small at first but more frequent, and with every strike, the humans were learning more about their invaders' weaknesses. The Xethar's superiority complex began to crack, and their confidence faltered. The first major engagement came when a small group of human fighters, armed with newly modified alien technology, launched a surprise raid against a key Xethar weapons depot in a remote mountain range. The Xethar had underestimated the humans' ability to move under the radar, assuming they would stay in cities and face their doom in the open. Instead, the humans took advantage of the terrain, using stealth and guerrilla tactics. They hit hard, destroyed critical supplies, and disappeared back into the landscape before the Xethar even had a chance to regroup. The Xethar response was swift and brutal, sending a large contingent to eliminate the resistance forces and reclaim their lost territory. But humanity had learned a crucial lesson: how to fight without directly confronting the overwhelming might of the Xethar. Using decoys, false signals, and constant movement, they lured the Xethar into a deadly trap. With the use of improvised explosive devices and advanced human weapons, now modified with stolen Xethar tech, the resistance destroyed one of the aliens' major supply hubs, sending shockwaves through their ranks. Meanwhile, across Earth, civilian support for the resistance was swelling. People who once feared for their lives now became part of a global movement. Cities built underground bunkers, factories shifted into full-scale wartime production, and tech companies devoted all their resources to developing countermeasures. The world had transformed almost overnight from a peaceful society to one built on resistance and survival. People who once lived for comfort were now fighting for their very existence. The world's military leaders, initially scrambling for answers, had begun to realize that a conventional war against the Xethar was impossible, but they didn't need to fight with brute force alone. The Xethar had come to Earth thinking humanity would fall quickly, but now they were starting to see the human race was more than just its technology. The people of Earth fought with everything they had: determination, adaptability, and a relentless desire to protect their home. In space, humanity's scattered fleets began to form and unite. While the Xethar had their massive, powerful warships, the humans had something far more dangerous: the element of surprise. A small but growing human armada, using captured alien technology and retrofitted human spacecraft, launched a series of ambushes, hitting Sether supply ships and cutting off their reinforcements. The human ships were nimble, evasive, and relentless, striking at the heart of the Sether's operations in ways the aliens had not anticipated. The Sether were beginning to feel the pressure. Their flawless strategy was starting to crumble under the weight of human ingenuity. They had not expected humanity to fight with such tenacity, to refuse to bow before them, and to adapt so quickly to their advanced technology. The Sether, accustomed to being the dominant force in the universe, now faced an enemy that refused to give up, no matter the odds. Humanity had made their message clear. Earth was not an easy target. The Sether might have the strength, but humanity had something far more dangerous: resilience and the unwavering will to survive. With every victory, no matter how small, the resistance grew, and the Sether began to realize that this was no longer a conquest. It was a war of survival for both sides. Humanity's resistance had reached a critical turning point. The early guerrilla tactics and hit-and-run assaults had forced the Sether to rethink their approach. But now the true power of human ingenuity began to emerge. Earth's scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of their creativity to exploit the weaknesses they had uncovered in Sether technology. What started as a simple act of survival was now evolving into a true counteroffensive. The key breakthrough came when a team of human engineers, working out of a hidden research facility, managed to reverse engineer a piece of Sether tech that had been captured during an earlier raid: a portable energy shield. For weeks, they had studied the device, deciphering the alien technology's intricate power matrix. It wasn't just about matching the Sether's technology. It was about understanding it and improving upon it. Within days, the team had crafted a shield that could protect human forces from the most advanced Sether weapons, leveling the playing field in ways the aliens had never anticipated. The implications were staggering. With the energy shields now integrated into Earth's military hardware, the Resistance gained a significant advantage. Human soldiers, armed with alien weapons and equipped with newly developed shields, began to make large-scale assaults on the Sether's ground forces. A series of well-executed strikes across multiple fronts shook the invaders' confidence. The Sether were used to overwhelming their opponents with sheer force, but now they faced an enemy that could not only withstand their attacks, but strike back with deadly precision. One of the most daring operations took place in the heart of a Sether-controlled city. A joint human force, comprised of soldiers, engineers, and tech specialists, moved in under the cover of darkness, sabotaging the aliens' communication network. The Sether relied heavily on their ability to coordinate their forces through an intricate system of high-tech communication, but humanity had learned to disrupt that system. The operation was a success. A series of crucial Sether communications satellites were disabled, throwing their forces into disarray. In the midst of this chaos, a small human fleet led by newly trained pilots using hybrid ships, partly human, partly alien, launched a strike against a Sether supply depot located on a remote moon. The mission was risky, but the reward was invaluable. The humans managed to destroy the depot and steal vital resources, further crippling the Sether's ability to wage war. The pilots, many of whom had no formal training in space combat, had quickly adapted to their new vessels and learned to fight with the same adaptability and cunning that had defined the Resistance on the ground. With each victory, the Sether's arrogance began to crack. The invaders, who had assumed their technological superiority would crush humanity in days, found themselves struggling against an enemy that had begun to turn their own weapons against them. The humans' ability to adapt, their relentless pursuit of knowledge, and their capacity to innovate had created a new kind of warfare, one that the Sether had never been prepared for. The Resistance was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. Humanity had found its rhythm. The first tentative strikes had turned into coordinated, effective offensives that struck at the heart of the Sether's command structure. Every day, the Resistance learned something new. whether it was a weakness in the Xethar's energy shields or a flaw in their supply chain. Each piece of knowledge became another weapon in their arsenal, and as Earth's resistance forces grew in strength, the Xethar found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The war was no longer a one-sided affair. Humanity had taken the first real steps toward victory, and the Xethar, despite their overwhelming technological advantage, were beginning to feel the pressure of a war they hadn't planned for. And for the first time since the invasion, the Xethar had begun to wonder if they had miscalculated. The war between humanity and the Xethar had shifted in ways neither side had anticipated. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had blossomed into a full-scale war, with humanity now fighting not just to defend their planet, but to retake their future. The Xethar, once certain of their superiority, now faced a growing enemy that adapted and outwitted them at every turn. What was even more unsettling for the Xethar was that humanity had discovered their greatest weapon: the ability to learn faster than their enemies could adapt. Humanity had always prided itself on its ingenuity, and this time, it was paying off in ways no one had imagined. Human scientists and engineers, working from secret labs around the globe, had managed to synthesize a new generation of hybrid weapons, combining captured Xethar technology with Earth's finest creations. One such innovation was a new form of energy projectile weapon that was capable of piercing through the Xethar's shields with incredible accuracy. The humans had been using Xethar technology against itself for weeks now, but the new weapons were game-changers. In the field, the tactics had evolved as well. Gone were the days of hit-and-run skirmishes. The humans had now moved into large-scale operations, coordinating attacks across multiple regions. The key to their success was precision and unpredictability. They used feints, false signals, and decoys to confuse the Xethar, drawing them into traps or forcing them to spread their forces too thin. It wasn't just a war of firepower, it was a war of wits. The most telling example of this was during the Battle of Starlight Ridge. The Xethar had sent a massive fleet to destroy a critical human stronghold in a remote region, believing it would be a simple operation. They could not have been more wrong. The humans had prepared the area with traps that utilized Xethar technology, blending them with Earth's own defensive systems. When the Xethar fleet entered the region, they were greeted by a series of devastating ambushes. The humans, using their smaller, more agile ships, targeted the larger, slower Xethar vessels with pinpoint strikes that disabled their shields and weapon systems. The once mighty Xethar fleet was quickly overwhelmed and forced into retreat. The battle was a testament to humanity's ability to outthink its adversaries, showing that brute force alone would not be enough to win the war. This was just one example of how humanity had begun to turn the tide. The Xethar, once so confident in their superiority, were now struggling to maintain control over their vast empire. The constant harassment, the sabotage, and the unpredictable nature of the human attacks were taking a toll on the invaders. Their supply lines were cut off, their command structure was fractured, and morale among the ranks began to deteriorate. The Xethar leaders, once so sure of their dominance, now found themselves questioning whether they had miscalculated by underestimating the human spirit. Yet despite the growing pressure, the Xethar were not defeated. They retaliated with increasing ferocity, launching full-scale assaults against major human strongholds, hoping to crush the resistance once and for all. But every time they struck, they found humanity had already anticipated their move, countering their attacks with ever more sophisticated and unexpected tactics. The Xethar's own arrogance had become their weakness, and now it was clear they were fighting not just to conquer Earth, but to stave off an enemy that was slowly turning the tide of war. The war had become a test of endurance. The humans had proven they could match the Xethar blow for blow, and now the Xethar realized they had an enemy that would not break. As the tide began to shift, the Xethar's initial confidence was replaced by doubt, and for the first time in the conflict, they began to question whether Earth was truly a conquest they could win. The longer the war dragged on, the clearer it became. This fight was not just about who had the most advanced technology, but about the strength of will to win. Humanity had now become the greatest unknown factor in the galaxy, and the Xethar could no longer afford to ignore the tenacity and resilience that had defined every step of the resistance. The battle for Earth was no longer about the destruction of a planet. It was about survival itself, and both sides had only one question left to answer: who would be the last one standing? The tide of the war had turned, but the true test of humanity's resolve was yet to come. The Xethar, having underestimated Earth's resilience for so long, now found themselves locked in a conflict that threatened to unravel their dominance across the galaxy. Humanity had adapted, learned, and fought back in ways that Xethar had never expected. But the true battle for Earth had yet to be won. With each passing day, the stakes grew higher, and a final confrontation loomed on the horizon. Humanity's forces, bolstered by new technology and the ingenuity of Earth's best minds, began to focus on a singular goal: the destruction of the Xethar's command ship, the heart of their operation. The Xethar flagship, a massive, heavily fortified vessel orbiting above Earth, was the key to their war machine. Its destruction would cripple the invaders' ability to coordinate their forces, disrupt their supply lines, and most importantly, break their morale. If humanity could destroy this symbol of Xethar power, the war might finally be over. But the Xethar knew this as well. They had already fortified the flagship, turning it into a nearly impregnable fortress. The human resistance had faced numerous obstacles in their quest to infiltrate the ship's defenses, but now, with the knowledge they had gathered from months of skirmishes, they devised a daring plan to strike at the heart of the enemy's power. A small but highly trained team of elite soldiers and engineers, some of the best humanity had to offer, was selected for this mission. They would need to infiltrate the Xethar flagship, bypassing its state-of-the-art security systems and navigating its labyrinthine corridors, to plant a series of explosives that would destroy the core of the ship. Failure was not an option, for the entire future of Earth depended on their success. As the assault team prepared for the mission, human forces launched a series of diversionary attacks to draw the Xethar's attention away from the flagship. These attacks were a combination of space and ground operations designed to sow confusion and spread the enemy thin. Human warships, using a mix of captured Xethar technology and their own innovations, engaged the enemy fleet in a series of lightning-fast raids that left the Xethar struggling to defend their position. Meanwhile, resistance fighters on Earth staged coordinated attacks on Xethar outposts, crippling their ability to reinforce the flagship. The infiltration team, moving with precision and urgency, boarded a captured Xethar shuttle disguised to blend in with the alien fleet. Their journey through space was a tense one, but the humans were prepared. They had studied every facet of the enemy's tactics, every flaw in the Xethar's security systems, and now they would exploit those weaknesses to their advantage. Once aboard the Xethar flagship, the team moved quickly, using the element of surprise to neutralize alien guards and bypass advanced security protocols. The Xethar, expecting a direct assault, were caught off guard. Human soldiers, using stealth and technology stolen from their invaders, disabled key systems, and silently advanced through the ship's dark corridors. It was a race against time, as every moment the team spent inside the flagship brought them closer to detection. The mission, though fraught with peril, was progressing smoothly, until a last-minute complication nearly derailed everything. A Xethar commander, one of the few to suspect something was amiss, discovered the infiltration team's presence. The humans fought their way through a brutal confrontation, narrowly escaping detection, but their cover had been blown. The countdown to plant the explosives had begun, and the team knew they had only minutes to finish the job before the entire flagship would be on high alert. The final push to the command center was chaotic, with the sound of alien forces closing in behind them. The explosive charges were set, but the team had no choice but to make a last stand to ensure the detonation. As the team members held off the Xethar forces, the bombs counted down. Time was running out. With a final, resounding explosion, the flagship's core was destroyed in a brilliant burst of light, signaling the beginning of the end for the Xethar. Their command ship was no more. The shockwaves rippled through the Xethar fleet, throwing them into disarray. Without their flagship, the Xethar were vulnerable, their operations in chaos. The human forces, having dealt a crippling blow to the invaders, now saw their chance to finish what they had started. The war was far from over, but humanity had made a statement. Earth would not fall. The Xethar had underestimated them. And now, with the destruction of their most powerful asset, they would realize just how costly their miscalculation had been. The final chapter of this war was being written, and the balance of power had shifted forever. Humanity was no longer a species on the brink of annihilation. They were a force to be reckoned with. The destruction of the Xethar flagship sent shockwaves through their entire fleet, creating a ripple effect that humanity could feel all the way down to the ground. The aliens were thrown into chaos. Without the command structure that had held their forces together, their once imposing fleet was now fragmented. The sudden collapse of their central operations created an opportunity for Earth's resistance to strike decisively. The first wave of human forces hit the alien fleet with brutal precision, exploiting the disorder caused by the loss of the flagship. The Xethar ships, once organized and efficient, were now vulnerable and scattered. Human warships, newly outfitted with advanced hybrid weapons and piloted by veterans of the ground resistance, tore through the Xethar lines like a knife through paper. This time, the humans had the advantage, not only in technology, but in tactics. They used the same guerrilla tactics that had made their ground forces so successful: hit and run, feint and retreat, to confuse and demoralize the alien fleet. Human pilots, many of whom had learned the art of combat in the heat of battle, engaged the Xethar with unprecedented skill. The Xethar had been used to dominating the skies, their ships towering over human vessels in both size and firepower. But now the tables had turned. Human ships, smaller and more nimble, darted through the battlefield with lightning speed, avoiding incoming fire and striking back with precision. Alien warships, once unchallenged, now found themselves overwhelmed by a swarm of well-coordinated human attacks. As the battle in space raged on, humanity's ground forces launched their own series of offensives. Resistance groups, now empowered by the disruption in the Xethar command structure, coordinated attacks across major cities and military outposts. Xethar troops, who had once held Earth's cities in their iron grip, were now fighting with uncertainty and fear. Without their superior command structure, they were easy targets for the coordinated strikes of Earth's fighters. The human forces, armed with the same alien technology they had stolen, fought with a ferocity that left the Xethar in awe and terror. They no longer saw humanity as a weak species to be conquered. They saw them as the very force that would destroy their empire. But despite the mounting pressure, the Xethar were far from defeated. Their forces were in disarray, but their ability to adapt was still formidable. The remaining Xethar commanders, desperate to regain control, began to regroup their forces and prepare a final counterattack. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, but now they were determined to crush the resistance once and for all. In an attempt to regain their footing, the Xethar launched a massive assault on one of Earth's largest military strongholds, an underground facility located in the mountains of South America. The resistance had set up a command center there, coordinating operations across the globe. If the Xethar could destroy this stronghold, they could sever humanity's ability to organize and mount further attacks. But humanity's resolve had hardened with every battle fought, and they would not be caught off guard again. Using the same ingenuity that had brought them this far, the human resistance launched a series of ambushes and traps designed to weaken the advancing Xethar forces before they could reach their target. The fight for the stronghold was brutal, a fierce, last-ditch effort by the Xethar to break the resistance's spirit. In the midst of the conflict, a surprising turn of events unfolded. As the Xethar forces pressed closer, a new group of human reinforcements arrived. An elite team of soldiers, scientists, and tech specialists who had developed a new experimental weapon capable of disabling Xethar shields and weapons in one devastating strike. It was humanity's answer to the last Xethar push, and they had timed it perfectly. The new weapon was deployed with precision, and the results were catastrophic for the alien forces. Their remaining forces were torn apart, and the stronghold held. As the last of the Xethar forces retreated, the human resistance knew the war was drawing to its final stages. The Xethar were still dangerous, but their defeat was now inevitable. The message had been made clear. Humanity had survived, and humanity had fought back. The invaders had come with the arrogance of a conqueror, but they would leave with the shame of having underestimated the willpower of a species they had thought weak and broken. The victory was not yet complete, but humanity had turned a corner. The Xethar were no longer the unstoppable force they had once seemed to be. With their resources dwindling, their leadership in shambles, and their morale shattered, the final days of the war were drawing near. The battle for Earth was nearly over, and humanity had proven they would not simply survive. They would endure, adapt, and rise to conquer their would-be conquerors. The final phase of the war had arrived, and the Xethar, once confident in their unchallenged superiority, were now facing the inevitable collapse of their empire. Humanity, bruised but unbroken, had emerged from the crucible of survival to become a force that no alien race could ever have imagined. The human resistance was now not only fighting for survival, but for the future of their planet, the future of their species, and the very soul of the Earth itself. As the Xethar regrouped for one final stand, it was clear that they had underestimated humanity's capacity to adapt, fight, and persevere. The remnants of their fleet, now scattered and demoralized, had no chance against the human forces. Humanity's new weapons, born from the fusion of alien technology and human ingenuity, had given them the upper hand. The weapons that had once been used against them now tore through the Xethar's defenses like a storm, leaving the invaders reeling. The final battle would take place in the heart of the Xethar invasion fleet, above the Earth's surface. The Xethar had gathered what remained of their forces for a last-ditch effort to break through and crush the human resistance. But this time, the battle would not be fought with brute strength alone. It would be fought with the very heart and will of the human race, a combined force of human soldiers, pilots, and engineers, backed by their most advanced technology, prepared for what would be their greatest fight. As the human ships entered the fray, the Xethar fleet responded with their full might, launching a massive assault on Earth's remaining strongholds. Their ships, though powerful, were now plagued with weaknesses: exposed communication lines, damaged shields, and depleted resources. The once mighty invaders, who had thought they could crush humanity in days, were now struggling to maintain control. The battle was fierce, with explosions and fire lighting up the darkened void of space. But the humans fought with a single purpose: to protect their planet, to protect their future. The culmination of years of conflict came when a human fleet, led by the most experienced commanders and pilots, breached the core of the Xethar command ship. It was a final strike, a coordinated effort to end the war once and for all. With precision and tenacity, the human fleet moved through the Xethar defenses, using everything they had learned over the course of the war. Their ships darted through enemy fire, evading Xethar missiles, and delivering deadly blows to the command ship's power core. The Xethar, once so confident in their impenetrable might, now faced an enemy they could not defeat. Inside the command ship, a last-ditch effort by the Xethar leadership to regain control ended in failure. The humans, knowing that time was running out, unleashed their final weapon: an EMP burst that disabled the alien ship's internal systems. With no shields, no weapons, and no way to defend themselves, the Xethar flagship crumpled under the weight of the human onslaught. The final explosion that ripped through the command ship was the moment that Xethar realized their empire was over. The shockwaves spread through the remaining forces, sending them into total disarray. Without their flagship, without their central command, the Xethar were finished. The battle for Earth was won. As the dust settled and the last remnants of the HFY fleet retreated into the far reaches of space, humanity stood victorious. The resistance had succeeded. Earth had not only survived the invasion, it had triumphed. The invaders, once so sure of their dominance, now realized that humanity was a force unlike any other in the galaxy. They had underestimated the resilience, the adaptability, and the unyielding spirit of the human race. Humanity's declaration had been clear from the beginning. You want war. Prepare for devastation. The HFY had learned that lesson the hard way. The war was over, but the scars it left would remain. The victory was bittersweet. The price of their survival had been high, but humanity had proven that no matter how great the odds, they would never be broken. And as they looked to the future, they knew one thing for certain. Earth was theirs, and they would defend it for as long as they drew breath. The galaxy had learned a new lesson that day. Humanity was not to be underestimated, and Earth, once thought to be insignificant, had become a symbol of resilience for all the universe to see.